What's up, people? It is Thursday, the 5th of July, 2018. The time is 8:02 in the evening. We're in West London. We're going to meet the legend of music and comedy, Mr. Bill Bailey. He's going to be on episode 2 of We Are Listening. Let's do it.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey.
How are you, man?
How are you?
Nice to see you.
Great to see you, man.
You okay?
Yeah, really good.
You look amazing.
Oh, and you?
Thank you.
It's been a long time, hasn't it?
It's been a little while.
Yeah. Okay.
This is all because I had this idea and then it's just happening.
It's happening now.
And I was like,
It's happening. Oh.
oh shit.
Okay. We have to do it.
Okay.
5, 4, 3.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to We Are Listening, episode 2. My name's SK Shlomo, and I'm joined by the incredible Mr. Bill Bailey. Hello, Mr. Bill Bailey. How are you?
Hello, I'm very well.
I'm so happy you could be here.
Yeah, really nice to see you.
Yeah, this is cool. Hello, everybody who's watching. This is episode 2 of this, which is a new idea, right? This idea happened about a week and a half ago. And let me just explain to the people who didn't see last week, so we can kind of explain what this is all about. So my name is SK Shlomo. I'm a musician. I'm an artist, just like Bill. And I kind of got known originally for being a beatboxer and a live looper and an entertainer. And I've always had this secret desire to do something a little bit more authentic, right? So I wanted to become a recording artist, just like all my heroes. And I decided to stop whinging about it and just do it. And I went and I kind of cancelled all my shows and just spent a year writing. And that would have been my dream come true, but it turned out to be a bit of a nightmare. Like my brain hated me, right? I just couldn't cope. And I went into one of the darkest places I've ever been since I was a child. And I basically lost my shit. I wasn't okay and I didn't know what to do. And it got bad. I kind of felt like I couldn't go on anymore. So I feel like I was lucky because I went and got some help, and I had a lot of support around me, and I kind of came through it. And the music was what really pulled me through. And I'm making this album and realised that this album is all about my journey with depression. And then I started talking about it. I decided I wanted to do a pledge campaign and get the world to help me finish this record. And the minute I started talking about it on my pledge campaign, I made a video telling my story. I just got so many responses from other human beings who also have felt that darkness and felt like they couldn't cope, or had family members who couldn't, or had lost people to it. And it was just this overwhelming outpouring of love and sharing and caring and talking, which just felt like suddenly there was this permission to do so. It felt brilliant. And I thought, you know what, we need like a home for this. We need like a space that this is, like a safe space to do it. And I thought, you know what, I know some really cool people who might be up for kind of just talking openly about their journeys and their stories and their experiences and sharing it with the world, using the joy of the internet, right? Because we can just do this. Like, this was such a recent idea.
This is it.
And here we are, broadcasting on our own terms. It just feels really good. So that's how We Are Listening was born. Had episode 1 last week with Jason Mraz. We set it up with like a day to do it. We set it up and 95,000 people watched it. It was just an incredible feeling. Felt great. And here we are 1 week later, and we're joined by this human being over here who has just got talent for days and really has got stories to tell. So can we please give a big round of applause for Mr. Bill Bailey? All right,
Thank you very much.
then.
Thank you.
Thanks, crew.
Thanks, guys.
How are you, Mr. Bill Bailey?
I'm really well. Good to see you. I've just come off a big tour.
Yes.
So I'm sort of slightly just a bit, phased. But okay, I'm decompressing a little bit. And it was good fun. It was really good. It was one of the biggest tours I've done in a long time. In terms of like most number of dates, most number of people, quite intense, and it was fun. And it got, you have ups and downs on the tour. You have times when, things aren't going right. But what was good about it was at the end of the tour, I felt like I'd sort of, gone down and then come up again. So I always think that's a good sign when at the end of the tour, you're not kind of thinking, oh, I'm done with that. Like, oh, I've got some new ideas. Wow, this is really working well. I'm, on to the next thing. So it's good. It was a positive way to end it.
It was a creative process. that you
Yeah,
went through.
definitely.
So this is cool. This is one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about today, and we should have time to kind of go into a bit of detail with it. And it's like creativity. We all agree is a beautiful thing. It's therapeutic. It's a chance to communicate, tell a story. But creativity on demand can be a slightly more prickly proposition.
Yes,
Like,
definitely.
I've got, in your scenario, I've got a tour, I've got arenas, I've got people who want to see this. I've got to perform. Like,
That's right.
how does that feel inside?
Oh, look, there's pressure. You feel it. It's like a physical thing. Actually, sort of weight on you, and almost to the point that it's like some kind of invisible weight that's on you. And I sometimes look at myself when I'm writing a show and getting ready for a show. I'm sort of shuffling about. Like I'm. You know what I mean? Like you've got something on your back, and it does have an effect on you, a physical effect on you, and it only gets. It never gets any easier, I think. And I mean, I feel over the years like I've been through there's different phases of my career where I was in the early phases when you have nothing to prove, no one knows who you are, you are actually going out every night, people have no expectation, they just see this guy, weird looking guy with beard, hair, what is this, jazz, what is this guy gonna do? Oh, he does it, and by the end of the night, hopefully, not every night, but hopefully the end of the night, people go, wow, that was great, and they think, oh, we'll come back and see you again, and that's great because there's a certain freedom to that phase when you can just experiment and try all kinds of things, and then there's a sort of the next phase, which I found, where is people know who you are. You've got to reach a certain level of recognition and whatever you want to call fame or whatever. And then you feel that expectation. You think, oh yeah, I have to constantly write. I have to move this on a bit. I have to match what I was doing before. In fact, I have to not only match it, try and better it.
Exceed yourself.
And then that's a real sort of, oh, okay, you realise, this is a bit harder than phase one, when it was just free form, we could do what you want.
And also you had your whole life's worth of stuff to choose from, do you know what I mean?
That's right.
Like, if you're anything like me, you've been making music since you were a kid.
Yeah.
And then when you did your first stuff, you could just choose the best stuff you had from...
Everything. Piled in.
Yeah.
The kitchen sink. My first show, I had like all these songs and ideas and stuff that I've been mulling in my brain for years. Plus, I had I had this X-Wing fighter keyboard stand made, right?
Sick.
So it just looked fantastic. And, well, I thought it looked fantastic. And the keyboard I had, it fitted into this X-Wing fighter. And there was the wings went up and there were lights in it. And I just thought, this is the coolest thing. Except there was a major design flaw, which I could never have predicted or foreseen. And that was that I heard someone walking out of the show, because the first gig I did, major show, was in Edinburgh at the festival, and this little venue. And somebody was walking out and they said, was he actually playing the keyboard? I was like, what? No. And of course, because the thing had completely masked the keyboard, everyone just thought it was a tape. Like, oh no, I didn't see that one coming. Anyway, but it was, everything went in there, the whole kitchen sink, and then like you say, the next show, it has to be good, it has to be, and then on and on and on it goes. Until now, I'm in that sort of another phase, I feel now, where a bit like what you've just been talking about is that you feel not a pressure, there's no, yes, I do feel the pressure, I have to put on a show, people are going to pay to come and see it, but I actually want to delve into something a bit more meaningful, perhaps, maybe something that's personal, because then we get more out of it. Yeah.
I think that's it, man. Like, I feel that kind of striving for authenticity, right? And I feel like you want to feel like you've got a kind of depth and a truth to the story you're telling, and it can be really easy to latch onto something which has been successful, right?
Yeah.
So from my perspective, you know, I got known for one particular thing. Well, I got known for lots of things, but there was a definite like sensation from my end of like, okay, this is what people like, this is what people want, this is how I'm going to get paid, right? So I need to keep on doing that trick, and there comes a point where like you've got to make sure you're also feeding your own soul, right? So
Yeah.
you're kind of creating something from your heart, otherwise it becomes inauthentic. Do you know what I mean? Like, is that the kind of thing you mean?
Yeah, I think I think that other kinds of. I mean, I do stand up, but I've other things I like to do. I like to make documentaries. I'm a big advocate for wildlife and conservation. And those things are really close to my heart. So I feel like if I can do something that kind of addresses all of those facets to my life, then I feel that I'm doing myself a favour, and I'm not just letting this kind of comedy career, this thing. It can unbalance you a little bit because it takes over. You know, it's all consuming. I mean, if I was to just constantly do gigs, I'd do a gig there'd be a gig somewhere. I could do it all the time, and I have to sort of make a conscious effort to say, no, that's enough. You know, I have to focus on something else just for a while, and then that feeds the creative process. It's an odd thing though. You never know where it's going to come from. You know, that's I guess one of the hard things about it, but also one of the great things about it. You know, like there's a great quote. I think J.K. Rowling had this great quote when she said that the worst thing and the best thing about writing is the blank page. You know, because you look at it and stare at it, and think, perhaps I'll never write anything. That's it. It's just blank staring at you.
Yeah.
Or but the other side of that is endless possibility.
Right. That's a beautiful thought, man.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Guys, if you just join us, you're watching episode 2 of We Are Listening, which is a weekly live stream real talk about creativity and mental health. And I'm SK Shlomo, and I'm joined here by Mr. Bill Bailey. If you were trying to watch it on Twitter, you're in luck because it worked. The Facebook stream didn't work at the last minute. Am I right? It still hasn't gone up, right? So hopefully, we did put a post up on Facebook saying come over to Twitter, so hopefully you're seeing this on Twitter too. But I think it's really interesting, like, that the world can kind of talk about these things. So we want to hear from you. We want to hear about your stories. We want to hear any questions you have. So if you're on Twitter, you can tweet us at Bill Bailey, at SK Shlomo, and we're hopefully going to be able to answer a few of your questions. If you've got anything you'd like to hear us talk about, please do tweet them in and use the hashtag #WeAreListening. And we're going to be talking for a little while. Hopefully you've got a chance to go in a little bit of depth about what it's like to be a creative person, what it's like to be a human being in this world, and how we can cope with that. Like, we've known each other for a little while.
Yeah.
People have been asking me a lot this week, how do you know Bill Bailey? And I think the answer is correct, that he asked me for beatboxing lessons
Yes.
about 10, 11 years ago.
Oh, it must be. Because my boy then, he was a little blonde-haired, tousle-haired kid, and I brought him to see you perform at the South Bank.
That's right.
And he was totally blown away by it, and really wanted to get into beatboxing as a result. And I was, also incredibly impressed, because not only because of your technical ability, but also the ambition, the creative way that you use it, because it was unlike anything I'd ever seen, and
Thanks,
still
man.
is.
Thank you.
And I must admit, I've listened to one of the tracks off this album, and I thought this is a completely new phase, I think, for you creatively. Isn't it?
It is, man, and it's like, what's really interesting about it is I tried to make it for me. So it's interesting that you used the word impressive when you talked about what I'd done before, and that's a term that comes up a lot about my work, my beatboxing, my looping, my work with beatboxing groups and stuff. Like, it's very impressive. It's showmanship.
Yeah, it's dazzling.
It's dazzling, like,
amazing.
And like, I love that feeling. I love that power you have when you can get up on stage and you can just make people's jaw drop.
Yeah.
But I also feel like that constant pressure that I was putting on myself to keep those jaws dropped
Yeah.
had started to get unhealthy, and I'd kind of felt like I was just chasing other people's validation, right?
Mm.
And I think that's why this music I'm making sounds so different, because I was thinking, well, I don't listen to people trying to be impressive when I listen to music.
Mm.
I listen to all kinds of mind-blowingly inspiring music, and I want to be like these people.
Mm.
Like, I was going to ask you about this. Like, you are, of course, an amazing comedian, but you're also such a gifted musician and songwriter. Do you ever feel like you have to live up to a certain label, like once you've established yourself as, oh, Bill is the guy who makes comedy songs? Like,
Yeah, that's right. There certainly is that. There is, you know, because I mean, these are the things that initially people have, you know, been drawn to my shows because of this, and so there is that. That people do expect to see that in the shows, and I have to kind of acknowledge that and think, well, this is part of, you know, my comedy, and so there is always going to be a place for it. And so the hard bit of it is trying to, you know, balance that with anything that's a bit more personal, a bit more involved, a bit more complicated, and try to sort of meld that into something that's entertaining. Because I always think that comedy is very much about, it should be first and foremost entertaining. People should come along and have a laugh and be taken out of themselves for a couple of hours.
right.
And then if you can, you know, sneak in a little bit of, you know, something else under the radar, then great, so much the better. And that's the key, that's the kind of the aim, that's the sort of, you know, the spice.
That's the goal, is to
Yeah.
like tell something that's got a depth and truth,
Something like that, yeah.
but it's still really funny.
Yeah, that's it. It's funny, and I think there's some, but I think there's an old sort of phrase that a lot of comics and people still use it, like, and we do. It's almost partly as a joke, but it's partly true, and that is all comedy is truth, and it was always, you know, used as a kind of a joke sometimes. Like, you'd sort of say, oh well, this happened to me. Yeah, all comedy is truth, but there is a kind of, you know, there's a sort of truth to it. There is an element of truth to it, because, you know, the greatest stories are always true. The weirdest stuff that happens, you know, is the truth stuff. You know, far stranger things happen in life than you can possibly imagine sometimes. And in my last show, the one before this, I started to talk about family and things like that, and it was a real revelation. You know, it was like, oh, okay, this is an element, this is an area of my life I haven't mined before. I haven't really talked about this before. And it was sort of was a bit anxious about it, because I'm not quite sure whether this is, because I'm not used to it. A lot of comics, a lot of artists, very open about their lives, talk about themselves and their personal relationships. In fact, sometimes that is the thing, that's the USP. It's about relationships and about, you know, understanding them, and that's where they get a lot of their comedy from. And I hadn't before that. So that was that's a new area for me that I'm trying to explore.
That's cool, man. And like, you know what? I think being an entertainer or a comedian, or like, because I've done a lot of work up at the Fringe as well, and kind of being in that world.
Yeah.
It's so fun and it's so electric. But there is a certain risk, because with comedy, you're kind of asking your crowd to judge you on every line that you say, because you have that direct feedback, which is, did they laugh?
Yeah.
And like, I've heard like, what's that? There's a brilliant podcast. Is it the Comedian podcast, something like that? I don't know if you've heard that. Where comedians talk about the process, and it's like, you kind of have to stagger how often you have a laugh, right? And some people like going for one every minute, or like if you don't get one every minute, if you're kind of hitting
that's right.
lower than
the
that, you're in
GPM
trouble.
gag per minute. We've got to get it up.
That's it.
Keep the GPM cracking on, and yeah, that's true. No, there is definitely that, and I feel it, you know, constantly, and it's sometimes, you know, there's a sort of tyranny of it, you know, the tyranny of the finding the funny in all things. And there's a great comedian, a friend of mine, Rich Hall, American comic, and he said that, you know, when you're writing comedy, often you find yourself processing all information in a comedic way. You know, so like you read the news and you think, yeah, what's the funny angle here? Yeah, but and then you know somebody says something to you. Yeah, but what about and it's just you know you have to kind of stop, otherwise it just takes over.
Yeah, and that's not healthy, right?
No, it isn't.
That's like I kind of got to the point of that with like social media, where I was like starting to like view my whole life through composing it into a little however many characters tweet it was. It's like, and then you're not actually in the room with your family and your loved ones, whatever it is. You're not experiencing your life. You're like living somewhere else in your head, living in the future of when you're gonna get to post this and get some that validation from your audience. Like that's when it starts becoming unhealthy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's really interesting to talk to someone like you who's been a professional performer for such a long time, and to ask you, like, those nights you mentioned. So you started your tour, you're on a high. Luckily, you ended your tour on a high as well.
Yes.
But those inevitable nights where it's just not right. It's not necessarily your fault. It's not necessarily the crowd's fault.
No.
It's
not happening.
It's part of nature.
Yeah, that's right.
Those nights can be hard.
Yes.
You get to your hotel or whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, and you know, I'm just pacing around. You know, eating too much cheese.
Yeah.
You know, looking at the mini bar. You know, there's like a big packet of crisps with you looking at you.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
I ended up in a mini bar, like where a hotel with a mini bar that had like an automated mini bar.
Oh shit.
And you take things out and it immediately charges it to the room.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm trying to think to myself, I'll just get the Pringles out without paying for them. So if I find something like of equivalent weight to the Pringles and like quickly replace the Pringles, and I thought I got a bowl of some socks. I thought if I put the socks in, then I won't have to pay. And I just think, and then I caught sight of myself doing this. I'm thinking, what the hell's happened? You know, and this is things like that happen. I end up having mad thoughts. Sometimes, you know, very dark thoughts, you know, the kind of negative thoughts, like, why am I doing this? What is this? Why am I putting myself through this? You know, it's like, really, this is what I do. This is a job. This is crazy. Why would I do this? You know, and then it's quite important, I think, that I don't know about you, but I mean, you have good friends, people you talk to. Comics are very good like that. I have one or two comedian friends, because they understand what you're going through. You know, if you phone, even if a very, you know, like your closest, your nearest and dearest, even like a wife, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a partner, you know, if they're not doing what you're doing, sometimes it's difficult to explain the kind of these garbled thoughts that you have in your head. You have to sometimes talk to someone that does that, and then they say, well, yeah, look, hey, I've thought that. Yeah. I know where you're coming from. I know where you're at. I've been there. And it's reassuring, and then you're going to just, you know. But some nights it's been all night where you think, I don't know, what the hell am I doing? You know? And then literally the next night, you're out in front of a crowd, and the crowd are up for it, and everything's happening, and you know, you're back in the saddle. But it's never a known subject. It's never the whole creative process, artistic process, whatever it is. It's not absolute. It's not. You know, it's not a science. You never know. There's your own feelings, the feelings of the crowd, the collective. There's something you're not feeling it down. So, I mean, literally, I've had thoughts on stage where I'm remembering a conversation I had with someone at school. You know, like some kind of, but you know what I mean, like something really random, but like, and I just think, why was he like that with me? You know, we're talking like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, for me.
Oh gosh!
And like, why was he like that? And this is happening while I'm in the middle of a routine in front of 2,000 people. I'm thinking, what other job is this? Is this happening? I don't know. That's why when I relax, I tend to do things that don't require thought. You have to unthink, I think, sometimes. I like to walk. I like to be outdoors. I like to go paddleboarding. Something that requires a physical act that does not require too much thought. It requires a sort of repetitive, you know, sort of action that's not engaging the brain too much, because I think that's a healthy, that's a part of the process, I think.
That sounds like a good coping mechanism, because it feels like sometimes your brain is just desperate to think all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just wants to think, overthink, and then work itself into a mess. And that's what I've been learning. Like, so I had, at the beginning of this stream, I spoke about what happened to me when I cancelled all my work to write an album, and I kind of went into a very dark place, and I had to stop work for about 7 weeks. I was out of action. I just couldn't. I just had to stop, and I just had to completely regroup and just let my brain calm down. It had gone mad. I had gone a little bit mad, and I'd never really done like meditation. Done little bits of it. Got bored and wanted to just do something more, you know, with a quick validation to it. Yoga. CBT, like learning about like documenting my thoughts and noting them and letting them calm. Like sometimes it's just like not fighting them, just like if you're having these crazy thoughts and it's like too scary to look at, 'cause you're like, I must be going mad. But if you just sometimes listen to them, right, you're like, okay, voice in my head, tell me what are you really thinking here, and you kind of let it out. Then for me it just sometimes will then finish, get to the end of what it's trying to say, and I'm like, okay, thank you, evil voice. Yeah. Can we get on with something else now?
That's right, yeah. Because, you know, I guess that you're thinking about this all the time. So you end up, it's like, becomes like a, you know, a chain reaction. I'm thinking about these thoughts. These are bad thoughts. Oh, I'm thinking about them. Oh, these are other bad thoughts. You know, but stop the thoughts about the other thoughts, and it just it's compulsive. And if you're used to constantly analysing about, I mean, I guess, you know, you sound a bit like, I mean, I have the same process. You overanalyze sometimes. I do that all the time. Overthink things and constantly roll things around in your head. It's hard. It's hard to sort of turn that off.
But getting out in nature, it's just a chance to like give your brain a break. Yeah,
definitely. I think that's a big thing for me when we're on tour. You know, we always try and get out and always make it a real. It's a routine. It's a ritual. You have to get outside, do something. I don't know, whatever it is, physical, walk, go for a walk. We go birding. You know, like I've got a whole cruise into bird watching. It's hilarious.
Yeah, man.
Like real tattooed, pierced, hardcore looking
Your
cruise.
fans know their bird shit, right? They know
do.
their bird shit.
Oh my god. and stand up paddleboarding, which is a great thing I've got into the last few years. So,
and
but
like,
how did you? Well, I'm interested to know how you worked through that. How did you get through all that? I mean, how did it?
Those 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, it was horrible. It was really hard. Like, I went to get professional help because I'd kind of hit that point of, suicidal's not the word, because I didn't actually make any plans, but I just was starting to question if I still wanted to be here, which is really scary. And that's what triggered me to go and get professional help. And kind of acknowledging what had happened was just a really big deal. Just thinking, you know, I've got into a state. It's okay. I'm going to be okay. And then just surrounding myself with loved ones, family, getting a lot of support. And I've got 2 little kids, and I just went and got my son from school, and every day we went for a walk together and made up a story, and then came home and wrote the story down. And that was like an hour a day of just pure daddy time. And it just helped me really reconnect with, like, I definitely want to be on this planet. Like, I am not going anywhere, and no voice in my head is going to take that away from me. So being able to then slow down, learn. Like, I love to learn, man. Creative people, I'm sure you're the same. Just knowledge is just delicious. So I just went on a binge of learning about all this stuff, about mental health, about psychology, about meditations, and I found out a bunch in the therapy. I found out a bunch of what was causing it, what were the deep roots, and it kind of stemmed right back to trauma in my childhood. So when I was 4 years old, I had a kind of a life-threatening experience, which I had never really had a chance to process.
Right.
And then as part of this, what's been happening to me recently, I kind of sat my parents down. Well, I sat them down over Skype, and I said, right, guys, you've got to tell me everything you remember. I know it was 30 years ago, but I need everything you can remember. And actually what I remembered from it was very different to what they remembered, and that helped me understand that it's all a story, right? Everything that you have in here, if it's in the past, it's a story, it's a narrative that you're saving in your brain, in the hard drive of your brain. You can't change it, you can't control it, you can kind of accept it. All you really know is what's happening right now. I'm sat here, I'm talking to Bill, you guys are watching that we're in this moment right now. We can't control the future, we can't control the past. So what helped me was just to practice breathing and being here, being where I was. I'm at the park with my son. And then when it got, when I started getting back to work, it's like I'm in the studio, I'm writing a song. There's no immediate danger. If I fail at this, I'm not going to die. Like it's okay. There's no lives at stake here.
Yeah. So that's good. It's pretty traumatic though.
It's getting heavy.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching, there's a question you'd like to ask either Bill or myself. All you need to do is tweet us at Bill Bailey or at SK Shlomo, or you can comment on the live stream if you're watching on Periscope, and we're going to try and answer a few of your questions. Things have just got a little bit real right here. Like it got deep very quickly.
Yes.
But also, like, it just feels quite empowering to be able to stand up and say these things. Like, when you get up on stage, you do kind of go into that superhuman mode where you deliver your powers to the world, and they get to sit back and just be amazed by you for a while.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily know that when you finish the show, you take off that mask, and then you're your kind of naked human self underneath there, and that can feel quite vulnerable.
Yes, exactly. And that's that particular time when you've just done a show is when you are, like, that's when you're like a hermit crab between homes, when you're vulnerable, because that's when, it can be, the odd comment, the thing, somebody says something like a negative, and you're hypersensitive about a show, and it's difficult to turn that off. It's difficult to stop that. You try and control it. You try and learn over the years to sort of control nerves and anxiety, just that kind of tension before a show. I used to get really nervous before a show, and ridiculously nervous, and sometimes I'd have the show where I had 20 minutes to do material, and I'd do the whole 20 minutes in the first 3 minutes, and then hold on, it's gone, and then what am I going to do now for 15 minutes? Oh Lord, and that was pretty scary. And
hard.
That was hard, and then but then occasionally something good came out of that, like where I'd just in that sort of white heat of fear and in the moment, a spark of inspiration would come, and that would be then the trigger for some other thing. And it was interesting. One of my first ever solo stand-up gigs was a pure accident. I wasn't even supposed to do it. I was in a double act at the time, and the double act partner was away. He was away on holiday, and so a club promoter phoned me up and said, "Oh, we need an act." And I said, "Well, my partner's he's on holiday." Oh, and okay. So he hung up, phoned a load of other people, and then eventually came back to me like as a last resort, like, "I can't get anyone. Can you come and do it?" I went, "All right." So I went to do this gig, and the first part of the gig was just it was awful. I was trying to do this act between two people with just me, so I was doing the kind of dialogue, when trying to remember how it went and getting it wrong and speeding up and getting nervous and I was just in that. There's a sort of spiral of panic which you get into, and I just thought, this is really going down badly. And then somebody said, "Oi, mate, tell us a joke," like that, which is the worst thing.
The worst heckle.
Because it's an absolute truth, and that if you're in that situation, and somebody says, "Oh, it tells you forget every joke you've ever heard, ever." I was thinking, I don't know any jokes. I literally can't think of one. And so the only one I could think of was the three blokes going to a pub. I thought, well, I'll start with that. And I just said, all right. I said, I know a joke. And so everyone went quiet. And I thought, oh, I've got them. Oh my God, I've got to do something now. So I said, three blokes going to a pub. And they went, yeah. And I thought, and I'm just stalling now because I don't know. There's no joke. That's all I've got. I've just got the setup. So I went, three. I say three. Is four. It's actually four. And then I went, well, I say four. Probably more like 7 or 8. Okay, let's round it up. 10. There's 10 blokes going to the pub, right? And then I just thought, oh, I'll keep going. It was getting a few laughs. I thought, oh, okay, 10, 15, 20. To be honest, it was a big pub. There's about 50, 60 blokes in there, and it just went on and on. And it ended up with like whole towns. Belgium goes into the pub. The Benelux countries, Northern Europe goes into the pub, and there was the whole world goes into the pub, and it was every bloke in the world goes into the pub, and then just a punchline just arrived, like literally out of nowhere. Couldn't even see it coming, and that was, the first guy goes up to the bar, he turns around, and he says, "I'll get these." I said, "What an idiot!" And he got a laugh, and that was just purely out of nowhere. This was just an improvised thing that came out of fear and panic and the desire just not to, to sort of be stuck in this situation. But what it was an enormous kind of epiphany, as it turned out in later, as I look back on it, because what it was I was clinging on to a kind of a set routine that I'd been doing for years, and actually what I needed to do was just throw that out and like dive in a kind of, and take a risk, plunge in, just trust yourself, trust your instincts, think, well, okay, I hope I could be funny. If I think up something, maybe something will happen.
That's so inspiring to hear, because that's kind of like exactly where I've been. I've been like wanting to do what you just said. What did you say? You just throw it all off, throw all the stuff that you've got stuck in.
It's a bit of baggage.
Dive in, throw off the baggage, and dive into the authentic version, and just trust that. Yeah,
what you want to do, what you really actually want to do in your heart. You think, this is what I want to do. This is the kind of comedy, or this is the kind of music. This is the sort of poetry, plays, writing, filmmaking, dance, whatever it is, whatever outlet of creativity you have. That's what I really want to do. And often you take a risk, you take a bet, you bet on yourself, your own, whatever creativity, your skill, your own, what you've learned, instinct, and that somehow that'll carry you through.
Yeah, so I feel like that's a theme that's coming through, like having spoken at length with Jason Mraz last week, and now talking to you, like authenticity, right? It's such a big part of being creative. Have you ever had this feeling, I don't know if you share this or if you feel comfortable talking about it, but feeling like identity can be a tripping point, right? So in our day-to-day lives, we do wear masks. We can't just show all of ourselves all the time. It's not appropriate. It's not healthy to do that.
No.
And then when you go on stage, you're a persona. You're like, for me, I had a lot of issues around persona because of my name. So I've been known as Shlomo for a long time, which is my middle name. So it is me. But my first name's Simon. So I went through school being called Simon, and then when I started being a performer, everybody called me Shlo. No one called me Simon. And then I started feeling like maybe I'd created this persona who isn't real, who everyone thinks is amazing and is marvelous and gets on stage and blows everyone's mind, but it's all fake. And the real me here, the real Simon here, is this small and scared and frightened and ashamed person who, if they really got to see the authentic me, they'd be disgusted by, right? And it's a horrible feeling, like kind of just feeling like you aren't you, or this thing you've made isn't real. Like, and then it took me a lot of work to just recognize, no, that is still me up there. Like, I am, with my mask on, it's still me. I don't know if this resonates with you, like feeling like you can feel a full identity with your performer persona and your normal human being who takes out the rubbish you know what I mean, who stays grounded, kind of
Yeah,
part of your
that's
identity.
right. You have to do that. You have to have a kind of you have to stay that, and it's very important that. And there's been moments where I've felt exactly that, and actually the sort of day-to-day domestic sort of routine is a tremendous comfort. You know, it's a ritual, and it's comforting, and it's grounding, and all those things. You know, and it stops you kind of maybe sometimes believing your own hype and getting above yourself. You know, like I remember doing this. I did this gig. It was one of the biggest gigs I've ever done. And it was really daunting and nerve-wracking and all those things. And I sort of kind of got to enjoy it, even though it was a big stressful thing. And afterwards, I came back from the gig, had a big party after the gig, and I came home. And the next day, I was just taking the dog out and, just sorting out the kitchen, do the bin and sort that out. And then it's great. And you just... That's what you need, I think. You need that. You need to sort of have that constantly in your life, I think. You need to have a bit of reality. Otherwise you do. It can be quite an unreal situation, quite surreal in some ways. And I sometimes felt that there's a pressure on you to be a certain way. Like people meet you out and about, and they just think that you're going to be this, what you're going to be. I remember once, just out here, outside in the street, I was walking around, I went up to the shops, and these two kids walked past, and one kid, he sort of looked at me, and they went past, and then they stopped, and he went, "Oi," and he goes, you're that bloke, aren't you? I went, "Yeah," yeah, I sort of know what you mean. "You're that bloke, aren't you?" I went, "Yeah," and he goes, "Off the TV, yeah?" And I said, "Yeah," and he said, "What are you doing, walking around like normal?" Like, what was I supposed to be doing? Hovering, like
flying.
Yeah, yogic flying or something. I don't know, or with an entourage or something. What are you doing? How can you be just walking around? And then he was really baffled by it. And I thought, God, there's people's perceptions of what fame or people in the public eye is. It's so strange. It's so out of whack sometimes with how we are. And other times when here's the thing, right? Where I feel I feel vulnerable sometimes, and it's way out of proportion. But it was an interview in a paper, newspaper, and you know what happens when, I should never do this, but I always do. I'm obsessive about reading everything that's written about it. I just read it. I just think either you read nothing or you read everything, and I read everything. Every word, every negative, every positive.
Yeah.
I think that in a way that gives you a sort of rounded look at, Anyway, and it was like some interview or a review or something, and then there's these sort of below the line comments, and there was this comment, and it was a nice interview. It was like people going, "Yeah, saw the show, it was great," and then somebody said, "Yeah, I saw him out in the park, and he was really weird and miserable," and I was thinking, what? And then, honestly, I became obsessed over this comment, and that's just not healthy. But I was thinking, well, what do you mean? Well, I was miserable, morose, and he goes, when was that? And I was like looking at the data, and he goes, he had a dog with him. I said, a dog? And what sort of dog with it? Oh, perhaps it was, and I traced it back, and I actually did my own bit of detective work on this comment. And I realised that when I would have been there with one dog, and it was this certain sort of dog, it was when my mum was really ill, and and I thought, oh right, and like finding these things, and I just thought, but I had to know that, you know what I mean? It was like I couldn't let it lie. It was like, what do you mean? Why is miserable, morose? Well, I'm not like that. I'm not. So I'm not like kind of on up the whole time, but I'm not. I'm reasonably level most of the time, and that's the thing. That's a sort of I don't know. It's not. I don't think madness is the right word. It's a disproportionate obsession with people's perception of you, and I think that as a creative person, sometimes you are sucked into that vortex, and you have to kind of back out of it sometimes.
But that's it. Like I feel like his reaction to kind of complaining that everyone was talking about your show, and then he's complaining about the fact that you were expressing human emotions in public, and it's like, is Bill Bailey not allowed to be a human being because he's gotten up on stage and he's made a show?
I know.
Is his mum not allowed to be poorly? Is he not allowed to have any emotions?
I know, it's mad, but that's it's the
I
way it
feel
is.
like that is a big cause of problems in our culture, is that it's like not okay to not be okay. Do you know what I mean? If you see someone in the park and they're looking grumpy, like we're not conditioned to think, well, something must have happened to them, or there must be some reason. We're conditioned to be like,
well, why aren't they?
This is bad. I don't like this.
Yeah. What's wrong with him? He's a comedian. Why is he not laughing and telling jokes?
And then so what I interpret that is that guy, he was cross with you because it made him feel bad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And apparently it's your job to make him happy.
This is all manner of things. These are the kind of thoughts that start percolating, and then you have to just sometimes
let it go.
Just go for a walk.
Yeah.
Put some James Brown on.
That is the best antidote.
Yeah.
James Brown, there you have it. Well,
James Brown and
ladies and
cup of
gentlemen,
tea.
if you are still watching us on the Twitter, you are watching.
Yes.
We are listening. I don't know. Do we have any interactions at all, producer Michelle? No, we don't. Well, it's still been brilliant just to have a chance to talk to Mr. Bill Bailey here and hear about his experience through creativity and kind of coping with those moments when your brain seems like it's against you. And I'm really honoured that you would take the time to talk to me and talk to both of our audiences about this. I'm also very honoured that you would pledge to my album. Like I sent you a message saying, "Can you come and talk about this on the live stream?" And then the next thing I got was an email saying, "You have a new pledger," and I was like, "Wow, he's done that." So thank you. That's really kind of you.
No, I mean it's great. I'm really intrigued to hear the rest of it.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
If anyone else is interested in hearing the rest of it, I've been making this album and I'm really proud of it. It's called Surrender, and you can help me make it happen. Like, I'm asking my audience to pledge in a crowdfunding campaign. So I have this dream, but it's kind of in your hands as to whether or not it happens. So if you'd like to help me with that, you just go to skshlomo.com/pledge and you can help me make it happen. And you can join the likes of Bill Bailey and kind of be part of this community that we're building. And we're going to be here every week through the campaign. So that runs till September. Every week I'm going to be doing a live stream, and I'm going to be announcing next week's guest shortly, which is super exciting. But before I did that, I just wanted to ask Bill if there's anything else you wanted to talk about. Like, it doesn't have to be about your deepest, darkest feelings. Like, what are you working on? What do you want to tell us about? Like, what's going on?
I think I'm just about to. As I say, this tour has come to this leg of the tour has come to an end. So I've now got a bit of a break, and then the tour kind of cranks up again. I'm off to Australia, New Zealand, and then down under for a bit, and then back home Christmas, and then some. The tour carries on next year. And a lot of the dates, a lot of places I couldn't play on this tour, I'm going to pick them up next year. No, it's been great fun, and great to chat to you, man.
Yeah,
good
man.
to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time.
It's been too long.
So we'll have to catch up.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's good. I think this is a great thing you're doing. I think it's a great project. I think that mental health is a subject that isn't talked about enough. I think it needs to be talked about more often, and I think that there shouldn't be the stigma that is around it, that I think still hangs around it even now. And I think that people feel perhaps embarrassed about it, or they don't want to talk about it, or I don't know, people don't know enough about it. But it's a global epidemic. It's a crisis. I was reading today, it's like the biggest cause of, for want of a better word, disability in the world. It's the most number of people that suffer from it. It's everywhere, and all walks of life, all countries. There doesn't seem to be respect. Like wealthy countries, poor countries, people from the West, the East, whatever. It's a part of the human condition in a way, and I guess part of the reason we're talking about it more, which is good, is that it's recognised more. We now know a little bit more about it. We know more people are coming forward, and so rather than I think that sometimes people say, oh well, we're only depressed now. People are only talking about depression now. In the past, no, everyone was fine. No, I don't think that's true. I just don't think people knew had names for it. They didn't know what it was, and nobody talked about it. Even less, it was even more of a stigma and a taboo. So, the more people like yourself talk about it and get people talking about it and starting the conversation, I think it's a great thing. So, very much respect to you.
Same to you, man, and same to all these people watching. Like, I feel like we collectively can help each other by supporting each other and talking and sharing, and kind of that's what I learned from this last few weeks. As soon as I opened up about my own vulnerabilities, just a number of messages I've got from people who I don't know, but also a lot of people who I do know and have felt like I knew quite well. And suddenly they're giving me this side to them that I'd never seen before, by sharing their vulnerability. We have a question. Let's take a question before we finish this. That would be lovely.
Yeah.
This one is from @TraceItalian, and they say this is a question for Bill. Can Bill speak to how nature and specifically the British countryside can become an escape for the troubled mind?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I totally agree with exactly that statement. In the last few years, I've really sort of craved being outdoors more and more. And when I was a kid, I grew up in the West Country, the west of England. It's quite a rural part of the world, and so we used to go out quite a lot. We used to, as a family occasion, we would go to sort of wildlife sanctuaries and so on, and we had countryside around. So it was always there in my childhood, and it sort of gave me a love of it, a lifelong love of it, and I carried on through my whole adult life. But it is a sort of a balm. It's kind of like almost a place of great comfort. I'd seek it out. I like to go on long walks. I like to really sort of. It has to be almost like a physical thing. As I say, you're getting on the rivers, paddling, going to places where you can watch birds. These are sort of things which are very. They're tranquil. They sort of, I find that, certainly what we do, and the world generally is become more. It's sort of there's chaotic. There's more noise perhaps than there ever was, both just physical noise, but online pressure. We sort of live at a different pace, and I think that actually the countryside just forces you to slow down. It actually makes you stop and think, and feel the ground under your feet, and feel grass, and bark on trees, and see birds and sky and clouds and things that have been around for millions of years and will continue for millions of years. So you're sort of, it centers you a little bit. I always feel it connects you with the past and shows you what the future might be, and it's not then quite so threatening. It centers you, and I sometimes look, you look back at your feed, whether your Facebook or Twitter feed or whatever, and most of my photographs are of just the outdoors, sort of like beautiful clouds or a river or a bird or something, just because I think that, I'm a great advocate for it. I think it's it's right there. It's easily got to, it's accessible, and it's one of the greatest resources for calming a troubled mind, as you said.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that question. So guys, if you are inspired by anything that we've been talking about tonight, if any of it resonates with you, I feel like we could do something together collectively, like right now while we're all watching this stream. Like maybe there's something we could do, I don't know, that would bring the world together and make us all feel more connected, and that's like we're kind of having to do this by ourselves. Like, I don't know, I was going to ask you if you had any ideas of what we could do, like right now. Like, for example, we could all send a message of love to someone we care about, or we could all I don't know, what could we do right now together collectively? Last week I asked Jason this, and he wanted us to all take a deep breath together and kind of get into a moment together, which felt really beautiful. But like, I
Yeah.
don't know, what do you think?
We could all just. I like the idea of a deep breath, or we could just all just like, you know, I don't know, just laugh.
Yeah, that's it, man. But that's it, man. That's what they say. Laughter is the best medicine. I know that's like some cliche
It
thing
is.
to say.
It is the best, apart from me, because I'm asthmatic, so it really isn't. Like, it really is not. It's inhalers all the way, and then laughter.
So should we do it? Should we do a great big collective laugh?
Yeah, or just a like that's what I want to do.
Just
A big tribal Icelandic, you know.
Okay, should we
Let's
do it?
try that. Okay, let's count me down.
3, 2, 1. That felt good.
I like that.
Felt good.
It's good.
I mean, I'm imagining all the thousands of people doing that too at home. Hopefully you did. Guys, thank you. If you feel like this is something that you want to learn more about, you can use a hashtag We Are Listening. This is going to be out every week from now on. Well, until the end of my pledge campaign, which ends in September.
Yeah.
You can like this, you can comment this, you can share this. The video is going to stay up to be watched whenever you like. Also, we are going to be releasing this video as a full video very soon, and we're hoping to make this into a podcast. Lots of people have got in touch after last week asking, could we make the Jason Mraz one into a podcast? And it feels like, you know, this is good content that you can listen to whilst your body's busy but your mind isn't. So that's the goal. So please stay in touch with us. You can stay in touch with this project on skshlomo.com/wearelistening. And if you would like to help me make my album, I would really appreciate it. I've been telling my story through music. It's kind of different, it's dark, it's exciting, and it's very intense electronic music. If you're interested in that, then you need to go skshlomo.com/pledge. I've got some really exciting news to share with you, which is about next week's stream on Wednesday, the 11th of July. I think we've got a slide to announce it. Which, are you showing it right now? Yes, you are. Mr. Reaps1 will be joining us. If you are from my world or Bill's world, I don't know, but if you know about beatboxing, you know about Reaps1. He's more than just a beatboxer, though. He is an international artist in residence at some of the most prestigious establishments in the world. He's kind of moved into the world of professional expression. He's taken it into a whole new world. So I'm really excited to get him on the sofa next Wednesday at 9 PM. We're going to be getting deep. If you want to follow that, then we'll be posting a link up in the week. So one more time, all I've got to say now really is a massive thank you to you guys for watching, and to Mr. Bill Bailey here. Can I get a little round of applause and a little internal hoo from everybody?
Yes.
Thank you again.
Okay,
Mr.
thank
Bill
you very
Bailey.
much. Hoo.
Hashtag
Okay.
We Are Listening.
Hey.
Peace and love, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Thank you and
See ya.
goodbye. Let's kill this. Bill, thank you, bro.
Hey.
Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Good to see you.
That was
Yeah, it's
really
fun.
cool.
I enjoyed that.